Ladies and gentlemen, we are 2 weeks away from the postseason. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Podcast, the podcast where you don't do Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. God, I hope the Packers make it in. Grossi, and today we are going to be breaking down and predicting every single game in Week 17. And there are some big milestone games and some hot matchups coming up this week and a whole lot of playoff implications. Before we get into that, I want to talk about last week. I went 11-5. Respectable. Here are the games that I got right and I got wrong, which brings me to a 151-90 record on the season. However, there are a couple folks who are doing much better than I am, and those are the two people that are tied for first place in the Pick'em League. We have the Kings pick and ESPN fan at 165-75. So congratulations to the both of you. The season is winding down. Who will be on top at the end? So let's get started for Thursday Night Football. And ladies and gentlemen, we did it. We did it. We survived another year of Thursday Night Football.
It's done. It's over now.
And they're gonna be going out with a bang. You got the New York Jets taking on the Cleveland Browns. The Jets had a crazy game with the Commanders. Sam Howell did not look really good. The Jets defense looked pretty good, but the Commanders came back in that game, started going back and forth, and ultimately the Jets came away with a win. And listen, they're just playing for pride at this point and potentially for draft picks because they're going to be in this weird position where they'll be drafting top 10, but are they going to use that pick on a quarterback? I think likely not, because I think they're just going to continue to go all in with Aaron Rodgers. But listen, last two games, just let it rip and see what happens. They're going to be taking on the Cleveland Browns, who are doing anything but sitting on the couch this January because the Browns are rocking. They smoked the Houston Texans. Joe Flacco looking incredible. Amari Cooper setting franchise records. And the Browns offense is just getting better and better. And this is with them losing punters, kickers, running backs, quarterbacks. It doesn't matter. Everybody's getting injured, but the Browns are still winning fracking football games. And here, I imagine this is going to be a defensive game. And it might also be offensive to my eyes. But I am going to go with the Cleveland Browns getting the win over the Jets. They just have a better overall team. And I think Joe Flacco should be able to do enough against that Jets defense. But they will be tested just in time for the postseason. Browns win. Then you got a Saturday Night Football game, which could be one of the best games of the week. You got the Detroit Lions taking on the Dallas Cowboys. The Lions, big shout out to them, clinching the NFC North title. And the last time the Lions won a playoff game, it was against the Cowboys. And now they're playing on Saturday night.
So, at last we meet for the first time for the last time.
It's going to be a good one. The Lions in a back-and-forth game with the Minnesota Vikings. Nick Mullins throwing lots of interceptions. Kirby Joseph intercepting Nick Mullins like he's Aaron Rodgers. And the Lions, I know they've been a bit up and down as of late, but they've done the work. They won the division. And now all that's left to do is compete potentially for that second or first seed, which is still very attainable here. They're taking on the Dallas Cowboys, who lost to a game-winning field goal against the Miami Dolphins. And it was a tough game for the Cowboys. Their offense really didn't look that great. They're playing outdoors again on the road, and it just seems like those are not the greatest conditions for the Cowboys. However, this week they are playing back at home, which they have a phenomenal record, and I think that this is going to be a really fun football game. Honestly, this game could go either way, and I really was going to pick the Lions because it's coming off a big win, but I think allowing Nick Mullins to even get close to beating you, that caused a little bit of concern, and I think the Cowboys playing at home, they do have a major advantage there, and so because of that, I am going to go with Dallas to get the W here. However, if the Lions get the win, oh boy, they may be locking up that 2 seed, and again, having their sights set on number 1. Cowboys win. Following that, you have an AFC East showdown between the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills. Both these teams coming away with some close wins last week. The Patriots, well, Bill Belichick just ruining the Pats' tank before he potentially goes somewhere else next year.
time to abandon ship.
That was a game of all time. On Sunday night, on Christmas Eve, on all nights, have some decency. They had a disgusting game with the Denver Broncos. And listen, it's been a tough year for Patriots fans because they had to watch this team do whatever the heck they were doing. Whether it was Mac Jones, whether it was Bailey Zappi, didn't really matter. Their offense really doesn't look that good. Now, of course, they do need wide receiver, but they also need offensive line. They need potential running back, but they also need quarterback. And they may have just won enough games to not be able to get one of those top picks. But they're going to be taking on the Buffalo Bills, who after smoking the Dallas Cowboys, went neck and neck with the LA Chargers. And I know Brandon Staley was gone, but that was a little bit of a scary game. Whole lot of penalties, not utilizing James Cook, turnovers, was just ugly football. And I think we're still just trying to figure out who the Buffalo Bills are. But right now, they have it all in front of them as they could still make the playoffs. And here, it's a really big game. I do think the Bills should be able to take this one. The Patriots defense might give Josh Allen some problems, but ultimately, I see Buffalo getting away with the win, and then they'll be one game away from the postseason. Following that, you got the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Chicago Bears. Another game where both teams coming away with a big win last week. You had the Falcons, coming out of nowhere. Kyle Pitts scoring touchdowns? What is this? What is this madness? The Falcons actually looking pretty good, and this is after they lost to the freaking Panthers. Meanwhile, they're going to be taking on the Chicago Bears, who, they were giving some flashbacks to the Cardinals after their game.
The Bears are who we thought they were. And that's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Yeah, I think the Bears might be the best, worst team in the league.
And we let them off the hook.
But the Bears, listen, their playoff hopes are still not completely out of the realm of possibility, though I don't think it's going to happen. But really, these last two games are going to be evaluation of, are they going to keep Justin Fields? I think he's done enough to give them another chance and potentially just use those high draft picks to either one, trade down and get a whole bunch more draft picks, or just support Justin Fields with a Marvin Harrison Jr., etc. So this is going to be a pretty close game. The Falcons, they're not out of complete contention to win their division. They're still in it too, and this game might come down to the wire. I am going to pick the Bears to get the win at home just because I like the way they've been playing these past couple of weeks. Their defense is much improved. Sweat is looking awesome. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Bears to get the win, and that's going to set up a showdown Week 18 with the Green Bay Packers. Following that, you got the Vegas Raiders taking on the Indianapolis Colts. The Raiders with a huge win on Christmas at Arrowhead against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I have to imagine this was the Raiders just prepping for that game against the Chiefs.
Hate. Double hate.
Loathe entirely.
Because, oh boy, did they steal their Christmas. The Raiders' defense looking phenomenal. Pick sixes, you got big man interceptions. Patrick Mahomes, he was just having a bad day out there. His receivers really not looking too good. And now the Raiders have put together a string of really good games. Of course, 63 points against the Chargers, and now beating the defending Super Bowl champs at home. That's looking pretty good. They're taking on the Indianapolis Colts, who got beat up by the Falcons. Very unexpected. Gardner Minshew didn't look that great, and overall, just not a great game for them. The Colts, though, however, they're still trying to hold on to that playoff spot. And the Raiders, they're also fighting for a playoff spot, and that might come down to Week 18 against the Denver Broncos. So this is a big game for both teams. I am going to go with the Vegas Raiders here, just because I think they've been on a hot streak recently. Pierce seems to be their guy. You just got to hope they don't let him go to Green Bay to coach special teams. But overall, I'm going to go with Vegas. Raiders get the win and get that much closer to a postseason berth. Following that, you got the LA Rams taking on the New York Giants. The Rams coming away with a win on Thursday Night Football against the New Orleans Saints. Of course, Kyron Williams looking great. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. It doesn't matter. I've talked about the Rams. They're in my top 10 right now because they have just been looking really, really good. And hell, they went toe-to-toe with the Ravens, who just beat the crap out of the 49ers. So the Rams stock, that is rising as they attempt to make it into the playoffs. They're taking on the Giants, who they kept it close against the Philadelphia Eagles. I gotta give them that. And Tommy DeVito, he gave it his all in that game before his media joyride came to an end.
No surrender. No surrender. No surrender. No surrender. Oh, shit.
Bippity boppity. But listen, the Giants, they're not a great football team, and I would know the Packers lost to them, so that makes all the sense in the world. But the Giants right now, they're just kind of looking towards April. They got a lot of things they need to fix, especially on that offense. And even though the Giants defense is sneaky good, I don't think they're going to be able to slow down the Rams offense. So because of that, I am going to go with the Rams getting the win, which sets up a major game against the 49ers next week to try and clinch a playoff spot. Following that, you got a Bird Bowl. You got the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cardinals, yeah, I get it. You're just waiting for this season to be over. They're looking towards April because they just want that draft to be there, and they're going to have a high draft pick, and they got multiple first-round picks as well, though I know they're wishing that the Texans did a little bit worse this season. The Cardinals, it just has not been a fun time. They need to address a bunch of things. They need to address receivers, secondary, edge. They need to address a lot. They're taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, who barely squeaked away a win against the Giants, and are going to be playing the Giants again in 2 weeks.
That was a close one.
Welcome back. But the Eagles, they did end their 3-game losing streak, but I don't think this win over the Giants has given them any confidence going forward. It is going to be a battle, and there's definitely some worry heading into the postseason. Now, the good news is that the Cowboys lost, so because of that, the Eagles are number 1 in the NFC East, and they are just trying to hold on to that spot. The number 1 seed, they could theoretically still get, but it is going to be a challenge because I don't see the 49ers losing this week. But here, I have the Eagles getting the win. They better hope that it is not a competitive game. I think Kyler Murray might make it at least a little bit of a competitive one. But yeah, I got Philly getting the win, and just pray that you're able to win Week 18 too. Then, it's a battle for the NFC South. I imagine that's what this game is going to look like. You got the New Orleans Saints taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Saints almost ruining their tank on Thursday night because they made it competitive against the Rams. And the Saints, they're another team that is just frustrating. Their offense, they have some great weapons, but it just doesn't seem like they're being utilized. Of course, you look at coaching, you look at quarterback, there's just a lot of problems going on in New Orleans. Meanwhile, they're taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who for the past 2 weeks have looked phenomenal. Not only did they beat the crap out of the Packers with a perfect passer rating from Baker Mayfield, but then they absolutely smoked the Jaguars, and Baker Mayfield looked amazing again. And as I said weeks ago, I think this is the Buccaneers' division to lose. I had them winning the NFC South, and I think they're going to be able to do that this week, taking on the Saints. They should be able to get the win in Tampa. And the Buccaneers, congrats, you're probably going to be hosting a home game in the wild card round. And let's see if that Baker magic can continue in the postseason. Following that, you got the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Washington Commanders. Both these teams, not too happy with their QBs this week.
Don't call me. Don't come by my house. We're done.
Brock Purdy throwing 4 interceptions, though 2 were really his fault. The other 2, they were just great plays by that Ravens defense. But looking at the 49ers offense, just did not look good against the Ravens at all. And on top of that, Brock Purdy getting banged up at the end. Sam Darnold came in, and he threw an interception as well. Basically, they ran into a buzzsaw that was the Baltimore Ravens. And now, as I said on power rankings, I'm not terribly concerned about the 49ers. They're still the best team in the NFC, and that defense is still pretty good, as they were able to keep it a close game for a while, even after all those turnovers. They're taking on the Commanders, and the Commanders, they're just another team. While they did keep it competitive with the Jets, who are just looking forward to the end of the season. Sam Howell had a really rough outing. I don't think he's going to be the guy next season. And on top of that, there's going to be coaching changes all over the place. And I think the Commanders are going to have a very different look heading into 2024. This game, yeah, I don't think this is going to be very pretty for the Commanders. The 49ers should have a nice bounce back game. Just got to hope that everybody is healthy, especially on that field. But I got San Francisco getting the win. Then you got a kiddie bowl as the Carolina Panthers take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Panthers had their best game of the season that didn't result in a win, as Bryce Young looked like their franchise quarterback. What changed? He played against a Joe Barry defense. That game came down to the wire, and they just simply ran out of time. And for Panthers fans, this is what they've been waiting to see, and I bet they're wishing they could play the Packers defense every week. But here, they're going to be going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, another cat team that has been struggling as of late, and it seems that Trevor Lawrence just keeps on getting injured in these losing efforts.
You Do you know what you're getting into? Let me ask you a question. Are you prepared to die for your cause?
And so we'll see what Trevor Lawrence's status is for this game, but ultimately the Jaguars, they're in a bit of trouble. The good news for them, the entire AFC South lost last week, so they're still holding on to that division. But I don't think they have a ton of confidence heading into the postseason. They better hope that Trevor Lawrence gets healthy quick and they figure it out, because otherwise, this could get ugly real quick. But ultimately, I am going to pick the Jaguars to get this win regardless of who's playing at QB. I think they are just the better football team, and while they're struggling, they should be able to beat the Panthers, and if they don't, panic time. Then you have what is probably the game of the week. The fight for the #1 seed in the AFC. You got the Miami Dolphins taking on the Baltimore Ravens. As we talked about, the Dolphins had a last-second game-winning field goal against the Dallas Cowboys on a big win, their first win against a team over 500 as well. And the Dolphins, they earned that win, and it was a tough game. Their defense held when it needed to, and I know there were some ref interactions that weren't the greatest, but ultimately, this was a good Dolphins performance, and I think that this is going to give them a lot of momentum going forward. They're going to need that momentum as they're taking on the Baltimore Ravens, currently the #1 seed in the AFC, and they just annihilated the San Francisco 49ers. Their defense played amazing, and Lamar Jackson, oh, I know he had a lot to say about Mike Florio after those comments.
Who the f*** are you to put me on trial? I've never even met you. So why don't you back the shit off, all right? And stop with the Inquisition.
Lamar Jackson was just incredible in that game. And again, the way that he's just so elusive in the pocket is just incredible. And this game is going to be amazing. Whenever I think of the Dolphins and Ravens, I just think of that night a few years ago where the Dolphins just sent blitz after blitz after blitz. And here, maybe you'll see the same. This is being played in Baltimore, so I think the Ravens have a decent home field advantage here that could give them the edge in this game. I am very curious to see how the Dolphins offense is going to do against this Ravens defense, which is one of the best in football. And ultimately, I think it's going to come down to the wire, and Baltimore getting the big win here, solidifying their position as the #1 team in the AFC. But at the end of the day, this game could go either way, but I got the Ravens. Then you have an AFC South battle between the Tennessee Titans and the Houston Texans. The Titans in a close game against the Seattle Seahawks, losing it at the end. And I know Ryan Tannehill might have been a little bit confused watching Derrick Henry throw touchdowns out there.
Is it possible to learn this power?
But the Titans, they're kind of the odd team out in the AFC South, considering 3 out of the 4 teams are competing for a playoff spot. And guess who's not? The Titans. They're taking on the Houston Texans, who just got their ass kicked by the Cleveland Browns. And listen, they didn't have CJ Stroud for yet another week. They're hoping that he can play this Sunday, and I think he's going to need to, because that would give them a major boost. And while the Texans have had a phenomenal season, I do think the Titans are going to give them some issues. However, I'm going to put my faith in CJ Stroud that he plays, so I'm going to go with the Texans getting a big win at home and keeping those playoff hopes alive on Sunday. And it might come down to Week 18 against the Colts, and I know I'm ready for it. But ultimately, if CJ Stroud doesn't play, I think it's going to be tough to beat the Titans. But I'm going to roll the dice. Texans win. Following that, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Seattle Seahawks. And somehow, someway, both these teams are vying for a playoff spot when weeks ago, we all thought their season was over.
Look at us. Hey, look at us. Look at us. Huh? Who would have thought? Not me.
The Steelers getting a big win over their division rival, the Cincinnati Bengals, on Saturday. Mason Rudolph lighting it up. George Pickens, after all the crap that was talked about him this past week, lit it up, almost had 200 yards. And everybody's looking around going, where the heck has this Steelers offense been all season? They're taking on the Seattle Seahawks, who, as we just talked about, had that big win over the Titans. And the Seahawks, they're another gutsy team. They had back-to-back comeback wins, and with 2 different quarterbacks, Drew Lock against the Eagles, and of course, Geno Smith against the Titans. And now they're playing at home against the Steelers. We'll see if the Steelers offense can have the same kind of potency it did this past Saturday. But I gotta favor the Seahawks here, being played in Seattle, and on top of that, they're just winning football games right now, and even when they're not, they're keeping it competitive. So I'm gonna go with the Seahawks to get the win, but then again, I've only gotten 2 Steelers games right all season, so if the Steelers win, you're welcome, fans. Then you have an AFC West showdown between the LA Chargers taking on the Denver Broncos. The Chargers keeping it close with the Buffalo Bills in the first game since Brandon Staley has been exercised. And listen, the Chargers, they don't have Justin Herbert. Easton Stick is back there. They're another team that's just waiting for the season to be over and hopefully having a better 2024 season. They're taking on the Denver Broncos, who lost a heartbreaker on Christmas Eve against the New England Patriots with a game-winning field goal. And the Broncos, they had a ton of opportunities and chances in that game, but they just couldn't capitalize, and everything just looked bad. And even though the Broncos' playoff chances are slim, they are still alive. However, with the benching of Russell Wilson, which was announced today, I just don't think the Broncos are going to be able to win this game, as it seems like they kind of have given up on the season. And listen, I know these two teams are division rivals, but both these fan bases, I think they'll be coming together before watching this game in sadness this Sunday.
I'll bring the beers. I'll bring the beers.
This game could go either way. It's being played in Denver, so I wanted to give the edge to the Broncos, but actually, I'm going to give the edge to the Chargers. I just think their competitive nature against the Bills maybe indicates that, hey, they're going to be playing a lot better without Brandon Staley, and I know it's Easton Stick, but I'm going to go with the Chargers to get the W here because I just don't have a lot of faith in Denver right now. So yeah, Chargers, you get a win, and sorry if it hurts your draft pick. Then you have a game that was robbed of greatness because there's no Joe Burrow. You got the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. And listen, the stage was set. It was set. We were supposed to have Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes again before both these teams made it into the postseason. But just like this matchup, nobody told these two teams that this season was going to be this way. The Bengals losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers on Saturday. Jake Browning just having a rough outing against that Steelers defense, turning the ball over, and the Bengals offense just looked anemic. They're taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, who just lost to the Raiders, and I don't think they're going to be in a hurry to watch that game film back.
No, go past this part. In fact, never play this again.
And the Chiefs have had a rough outing as of late. However, I do want to point something out. The fact that they're talking about Mahomes and how he can't win with all these no-name receivers, he just won a Super Bowl back in February without Tyreek Hill. However, I will say, the receivers are not good right now, but it's more than just the receivers. The play calling is not good, Mahomes is struggling, and the offense is just not going right now. We keep on waiting for the Chiefs to get back to form, and it's just not happening. And originally, if Jake Browning kept on balling out, I was going to pick the Bengals to win this game. However, I am going to go with the Chiefs to get a bounce-back win against the Bengals. While Cincinnati has a very talented team, I do think Jake Browning is going to struggle against this Chiefs defense. So because of that, I'm going to have the Chiefs get the win. They should be able to lock up the division. But damn, that was not an easy road to get there. And finally, on Sunday Night Football, you got the Green Bay mother-loving Packers taking on the purple incarnation of Satan, the Minnesota Vikings. And for the Packers, they need to show those purple devils who really runs this rivalry.
Who's in charge? Me or the devil? I think I'm in charge. Fuck 988 and shake his hand. Just like...
No, but please win, Packers. The Packers squeaking out a win against the Carolina Panthers, and it was ugly. They were up 30-16, wound up finishing that game 33-30. The Panthers, they clawed their way back. And the Packers defense, well, it's run by Joe Barry, so you know how that's going. However, the offense is clicking, even with all those injuries. No Jaden Reed. Dontavian Wicks left that game early. No Christian Watson. And Jordan Love is still cooking. He's a top 3 quarterback in terms of passing touchdowns this year, and I just love the progress that we have been seeing from Jordan Love. Jair Alexander was also suspended for the Vikings game, so unfortunately not going to be able to see that Justin Jefferson-Alexander matchup. We just got to hope and pray that that secondary is going to be able to handle it. They're taking on the Vikings, who Nick Mullins had a rough outing. Multiple interceptions. That offense just struggled at times, though. They were like, hey, just throw it up for Justin Jefferson. He's got to be down there somewhere. On top of that, they just lost TJ Hawkinson for the season in a brutal injury, which absolutely sucks because he's a great player. And right now, it seems like in Minnesota, the QB situation is up in the air. You could see Josh Dobbs. You could see Hall. You could see Mullins start. Nobody knows as of recording this video. And this game, oh, it's gonna get ugly. The Packers, they need to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive. If they lose and either the Seahawks or the Rams win, the Packers' postseason hopes are eliminated. I'm gonna go with the Green Bay mother-loving Packers to get the win in primetime, and that will set up a Week 18 matchup against the Bears, which will hopefully get the Packers in the postseason. But first, they gotta take care of Satan. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you have winning this week? Who do you have losing? We only got one more week after this until the postseason, so buckle up. You can always find me at Tom Grossi Comedy, all social media, see down below. A big shout out and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel, and thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi, and as always, go Pack Go.